I remember telling Ryan, Elena isn't going anywhere. And the way he stared at me like I had just said the stupidest thing in the world. He leaned back in his chair and said, "You keep talking like she's a guarantee, man. She's a person, not a trophy." I laughed it off, pretending he was overreacting. Inside, I told myself there was no way Elena would ever walk away. I felt too safe, too certain, too arrogant. "Relax," I said, waving him off. "She knows how I am." "That's exactly the problem," he muttered, but I didn't want to hear it. Back then, I believed every argument was something to win. Every disagreement was a battlefield. Elena would tell me, "Can't you just talk to me without trying to be right?" And I would smirk, pull her closer, and answer, "But I am right." She'd sigh, shake her head, and say, "You make everything harder than it needs to be." I'd kiss her forehead and whisper, "You'll understand." Somehow, she always did. I used that as an excuse to never change. The last normal day we had started simple. She walked into the kitchen wearing my old hoodie, hair still damp from her shower. "Morning," she said softly, reaching out to touch my arm. I pulled her into a lazy hug. "You look half asleep," I teased. She laughed. "Because you kept me awake talking about that stupid movie you hated. I had to make sure you understood why it was terrible," I said, knowing she liked it. She rolled her eyes, but her smile stayed warm. As she brewed coffee, she asked, "Do you think we could go out tonight? Just us?" "Why?" I asked. Not because I didn't want to go, but because I never gave a straightforward yes. I always needed control. Always needed things to be my idea. She shrugged. "I just feel like we haven't had time recently." "We're together right now," I said, sitting on the counter. "Isn't that enough?" She stared at me for a long second. "Sometimes I want to be with you when you're actually present." I pretended not to understand. "I'm present." "Are you?" she whispered. I didn't respond. I didn't like being confronted, even gently. Later that day, we walked through the market near our street. She slipped her hand into mine, and without thinking, I shook it off. A group of guys from my gym were standing nearby, and I didn't want them to see me holding hands like some soft boyfriend. I didn't even look at her when I did it. I just kept walking. "Did you just pull away?" she asked quietly. "I didn't want people getting the wrong idea," I said, pretending it made sense. "What wrong idea?" she asked, following beside me. "That I don't know. Too clingy. Too emotional." She stopped walking. "So holding my hand makes you look weak?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." I could hear the hurt, but I shrugged it off. "Elena, come on. Don't make this dramatic." "I'm not," she said, voice trembling a little. "I just want to understand why you're fine being close to me in private, but distant the second someone looks at us." I crossed my arms. "Why are we talking about this in public?" "Because this is where it happened." I sighed loudly. "I don't want to argue." Her eyes softened instantly. "I'm not trying to fight. I just want you to stop pushing me away." "I'm not pushing you away," I insisted, even though that was exactly what I did every day. She looked at me for a long moment before whispering, "Okay, maybe I'm overthinking." That was what she always said. She called her pain overthinking, and I let her believe it because it was easier than admitting I caused it. When we got back home, she sat on the couch while I played something on my phone. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. "About what now?" I mumbled. She inhaled slowly. "About us. We're fine," I said, without looking up. Her voice cracked a little. "Are we?" I exhaled through my nose, trying to keep the upper hand. "Elena, you worry too much." She turned away, hugging her knees. "I just want you to see me," she whispered. "I do see you," I said, but my tone was defensive, not loving. She shook her head. "No, you see who you think I'll always be." Someone who stays no matter what. I didn't answer. I didn't know how to. Everything she said felt too close to the truth I refused to admit. That night, Ryan called again. "You're pushing her away," he repeated. "She won't wait forever." "She will," I said automatically. "How do you know?" "Because she loves me." "You keep saying that like it's a bulletproof vest," he replied. "Love doesn't protect you from consequences." I laughed. "You're being dramatic. You're being blind," he snapped. I hung up on him. I remember going back to the bedroom. Elena was asleep on her side, facing the wall, not curled against me like she usually was. I climbed into bed, touched her shoulder lightly, but she didn't move. I thought she was just tired. I didn't know she was tired of me. As I lay there, I told myself, she'll understand. She always does. I didn't know I would remember that moment for the rest of my life. The moment her hand slipped from mine, the moment she looked at me with silent disappointment, the moment I brushed off her pain like it was nothing. I didn't know that one small act, the stupid, careless decision to pull my hand away, would become the moment I'd replay endlessly, wishing I could take it back. Back then, I thought I could never lose her. I had no idea how wrong I was. I remember the exact moment everything shifted. It was subtle, so subtle I almost missed it. Elena stood in the doorway that morning, holding her mug with both hands the way she did when she was nervous. She looked at me and asked, "Do you still care about us?" Her voice wasn't loud or dramatic. It was small, almost afraid, and I hated how much it made me feel cornered. Instead of answering honestly, I chose control. I always chose control. "What kind of question is that?" I replied, acting annoyed even though something in her expression made my chest tighten. "It's a real question," she whispered. "Do you still care?" "You're overthinking again," I said, brushing past her. "Stop turning everything into a crisis." She stared at me like she was waiting for something. Anything. Then she said, "A simple yes would have been enough." "Well, you already know the answer," I muttered. Her smile faltered. Not dramatically. Not in the way movies show heartbreak. It was quieter than that, like watching a light dim. She nodded slowly and said, "Okay, I guess that tells me what I needed to know." I rolled my eyes. "You always take things the wrong way." "No," she said, gripping her mug a little tighter. "I take them the way you give them." I felt irritation rising. "Elena, can we not do this right now?" "We haven't done this at all," she said. "Not in months." I walked to the counter, pretending I wasn't affected. "I'm right here, aren't I?" She shook her head. "Sometimes you're beside me, but I still feel alone." I didn't respond. I didn't know how to respond. Vulnerability made me uncomfortable, and the more emotional she became, the colder I felt myself behaving. "You're being dramatic," I said, grabbing my keys. She looked at me like she was really seeing me for the first time. "I'm being honest." "Same thing," I muttered, even though it wasn't. Her eyes lowered, and for the first time, I saw something break in her expression. Something small but real. I ignored it. Later that day, I stopped by her workplace to drop off something she'd forgotten, and that's when I saw him, Mason. He was standing near her desk, leaning slightly, talking in a low, calm voice. He noticed I was there before she did. "You must be her boyfriend," he said with an easy smile. I nodded, trying to figure out why his confidence bothered me. "Yeah, I just came to give her this." Elena turned around, surprised but smiling faintly. "Oh, you didn't have to come. You left it on the table," I said. "Figured you needed it." "Thank you," she whispered, and something about her gratitude felt heavier than usual. Mason looked between us like he sensed the tension. "Elena was just telling me about the presentation she's preparing. She's been working hard." "She works hard on everything," I said. "Sometimes too hard." Elena opened her mouth to respond, but closed it quickly, like she was swallowing words I didn't care to hear. Mason chuckled softly. She's good at what she does. It's nice seeing someone appreciate the effort. I folded my arms. I appreciate it. He raised his eyebrows slightly, almost like he didn't believe me. Good. She deserves that. Elena stepped closer to me. I'll walk you out. In the hallway, she said quietly. You didn't have to come here sounding defensive. I wasn't defensive. You were. He was acting like he knows you better than I do. He doesn't, she said, but he listens when I talk. That stung more than I wanted to admit. Are you saying I don't? She looked down. I'm saying it's been a while. I scoffed. So now this guy is what? Your emotional support? She blinked. Why are you making it sound ridiculous? Because it is. She stepped back slightly. You don't get to mock what you don't give. What does that even mean? I asked, frustrated. It means I've been asking you to talk to me, to engage with me, to be present with me. And you keep pushing me away. And now someone else simply listens, and suddenly you feel threatened? I clenched my jaw. I'm not threatened. She gave a small, sad smile. Then why are you angry? I'm not angry. You always say that, she whispered. We stood in silence for a moment. Finally, I said, let's not turn this into something big. Everything feels big now, she murmured, because everything feels like it matters more to me than to you. I shoved my hands in my pockets. You're imagining things. Her eyes flickered, not with anger, but resignation. Okay. I hated that word. I hated how final it sounded. I hated how she said it like she had run out of energy. When I got home that night, I texted her. Did you eat? Usually, she replied instantly. This time, nothing. I told myself she was busy. I told myself she was tired. I told myself she was in a meeting, or maybe her phone had died, or maybe she didn't hear the notification. An hour passed, then 2, then 3. For the first time in a long time, the silence wasn't peaceful. It wasn't comforting. It wasn't something I could ignore. For the first time, it bothered me. I kept checking my phone, waiting for the screen to light up, waiting for her name to appear, waiting for the simple reassurance I had always taken for granted. But the message stayed unread. And in that quiet apartment, staring at the gray glow of my screen, I realized something I didn't want to admit. That morning, when she asked if I still cared, her eyes didn't shine the way they used to. And now I knew why. I still remember the morning the breaking point finally hit us. It didn't come with screaming. It didn't come with slammed doors or shattered plates. It came the same way storms creep in. Quiet, steady, unavoidable. I woke up irritated, for no real reason, and Elena was sitting at the edge of the bed tying her shoes. I said, "Can you not make noise this early?" And she paused, her hands freezing mid-movement. "I'm barely moving," she whispered. "Well, it feels loud," I said, rubbing my temples. She looked at me for a long moment. "You wake up angry at me every day now." "That's not true," I muttered. She didn't reply. She just stood, grabbed her sweater, and headed to the kitchen. I followed, still annoyed. "Why are you acting like I'm some monster?" "I didn't say you were," she said. "I just said you sound angry. You're twisting everything again." She stopped pouring her coffee. "I'm twisting?" "Yes," I said. "You always do this." She didn't defend herself. That should have been a warning. Instead, she simply asked, "Do you want breakfast?" "No." "And don't pretend everything's fine." She nodded slowly. "Okay." Something about that "okay" made my stomach tighten. I asked, "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means okay. Nothing else." I scoffed. "There you go again, acting like a victim." Her hands fell to her sides. She looked tired, too tired. I'm not acting like anything. I'm just trying not to fight. Then stop starting fights, I snapped. She stared at me for a long moment. I didn't start this one. I hated how calm she sounded. Calmness made me feel like I was losing control. You always do this, I repeated, pacing. You let things build up in your head and then unload them on me. She leaned against the counter. I didn't unload anything. You're unbelievable, I muttered. Do you want attention or something? Is that it? Her face changed then. Not broken, not angry, just done. She said, I'm tired, that's all. Tired of what? Tired of trying to guess what version of you I'm getting every day. Oh, so now I'm the problem? She didn't argue. She didn't plead. She didn't explain. She just walked into the bedroom. I followed her, still talking, still trying to win whatever argument I thought we were having. Look at you packing silence like it's some noble thing, I said. Say something. She opened the drawer. I don't have anything left to say. That's ridiculous, I snapped. You always have something to say. She placed a small stack of folded clothes into a bag. Not anymore. Can you stop? We're just having a normal fight. This isn't normal, she whispered. It hasn't been normal for a long time. We're fine, I insisted. We always bounce back. Her hands paused over the zipper of her bag. No, I bounce back. You just wait for me to. That's not fair, I muttered. It's the truth. I felt panic rise in my chest, a feeling I didn't want to acknowledge. So I covered it with anger, the only emotion I knew how to use. So you're just giving up? She looked at me then, really looked at me. Eyes clear, steady, and strangely peaceful. I can't do this anymore. Everything in me went cold. What does that mean? It means I'm leaving. For how long? I asked, even though a part of me already knew the answer. She zipped her bag. I don't know. No, I said, stepping forward. You're being dramatic. You always say things you don't mean. Not today. Elena, stop. We're having a rough morning. That's all. It's been years of rough mornings, she said softly. You're not thinking straight, I argued. I've never thought clearer. I forced a laugh. You'll come back. She didn't even look at me. I don't think I will. You're overreacting. She shook her head. I'm finally reacting. I felt something inside me collapse, but I didn't know how to show that. I didn't know how to say, don't go. Please don't go. So instead I said, you're really going to walk out? Just like that? Not just like that, she whispered. I've been walking out in my heart for a long time. That makes no sense. It makes perfect sense, she said. You just never noticed. I watched her pick up her phone and send someone a message. A few minutes later, a car pulled up outside. I felt my jaw clench. Who is that? She hesitated. Mason. I laughed sharply. Of course it's him. He's just giving me a ride. A ride to what? Your new life. She didn't defend herself. He offered. Why him? I demanded. Because he showed up, she said. That hit harder than it should have. I show up. She shook her head. You show up physically, not emotionally. That's unfair. It's accurate. I followed her to the door. Elena, stop. We can fix this. She held the doorknob gently. I've been trying to fix us alone for too long. You're leaving me for him? I'm leaving because of us, she said. Not because of him. Her voice wasn't cold. It wasn't angry. It was just tired. Mason stepped out of the car, but kept his distance. He didn't touch her. He didn't say anything. He just waited. Steady, consistent, present. The way I never stayed long enough to be. I said, so that's it? She adjusted the strap of her bag. Yes. You'll come back, I whispered. She didn't answer. She stepped outside, walked down the path, and opened the car door. Mason gave her space, but he looked at her with concern. A kind of gentle awareness I had never bothered giving. I watched her sit beside a man who didn't make her feel small. A man who didn't make her wait. A man who didn't think love was weakness. The engine started. The door closed. And I stood frozen, staring at the space she used to fill. For the first time, I realized she was truly leaving. And it was the first time my ego didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss. The apartment felt wrong the moment I stepped inside after she left. I dropped my keys on the table and listened to the silence settle like a punishment. Her laughter used to fill that space, but now the rooms felt hollow around me. I walked to the kitchen and saw her mug still sitting beside the sink. I picked it up and whispered, "You really left me, didn't you?" My voice cracked, but there was no one left to hear it. I sat down and stared at the empty chair across from me, remembering how she once teased me for sitting like an old man. I used to wave her off with a sarcastic comment, thinking jokes would cover every crack. Now the cracks felt wide enough to swallow me whole. Claire showed up that afternoon without knocking, which meant she already knew something was wrong. She looked around and asked, "Where's Elena?" I shrugged and said, "She left." Claire put her hands on her hips like she was ready to fight me herself. She said, "You didn't lose her. You pushed her out with your ego." I snapped back, "You don't know anything about our relationship." She walked closer and said, "I know you never treated her the way she deserved." I felt heat rise in my chest, but I still said, "You're exaggerating." Claire shook her head and said, "No, I'm telling you the truth you never wanted to hear." I sat down on the couch, unable to meet her eyes because something inside me knew she was right. Claire softened her voice and said, "She waited for you longer than anyone should have." I rubbed my face and muttered, "I thought she'd stay." Claire replied, "People stay until staying becomes the thing that hurts them most." After she left, I wandered through the apartment, touching the things Elena used to love. Her sweater hung on the back of the chair, soft and familiar under my fingers. I pressed it to my face and whispered, "Why wasn't I enough?" My voice sounded small, nothing like the man I pretended to be. Later that night, I scrolled through my phone and saw photos of Elena and Mason at a charity event. She looked bright, standing next to him like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. I stared at her smile and whispered, "You look happier without me." The admission burned, but it also forced me to see the truth I kept running from. I whispered, "I was supposed to be the one making you happy, but the reflection on my screen showed a man who didn't know how to love right." I said, "Maybe you were never the problem. Maybe it was always me." My chest tightened as memories of every small argument replayed in my mind. I remembered all the time she asked for attention, and I called her needy. I remembered every moment she reached for me, and I pulled away like her touch was too much to handle. I whispered, "You loved me more than I knew how to accept." I dropped my phone and buried my face in my hands. The tears came slowly at first, then harder, shaking something loose inside me I didn't know was stuck. I said into the empty room, "I should have fought for you." The silence answered me with the same coldness I once used on her. I stood and walked to the window, staring at the street she used to come home through. I whispered, "You deserved better than the version of me you got." The more I spoke, the more the guilt settled into my bones. I realized losing her never happened in one moment. It happened in thousands of small moments I ignored. I said, "Every time you asked for love, I acted like it was too much." I leaned against the wall and felt grief hit me like a wave I couldn't dodge anymore. I whispered, "I miss you," even though I knew she couldn't hear me. The admission cracked something deep inside me I had buried under pride for years. I said, "I should have loved you better." I walked back to the bedroom and stared at the empty space where her suitcase used to sit. I remembered how she packed slowly that last day, waiting for me to say something worth staying for. I never did, and the realization made my throat tighten until I could barely breathe. I sat on the bed and said, "You gave me everything, and I treated your love like a burden." The truth hurt, but it also felt like the first honest thing I had said in years. I whispered, "I hope he treats you the way I never knew how to." I stood again, feeling every mistake I ever made settle on my shoulders like weight I finally deserved to carry. I said, "I'm sorry," to the air, to the walls, to the memories, even though I knew it wouldn't change anything now. The room stayed quiet, holding the pieces of a life I destroyed with every careless word I ever threw at her. I lay back against the wall and let the reality sink in until the tears came again, heavier and sharper than before. I cried then, letting the truth break me open at last. I finally felt everything I had ignored. I kept telling myself I should stop checking her social media, but every night my thumb moved on its own. I opened her page like a ritual I couldn't break. There she was again, standing beside Mason, smiling in a way that felt painfully effortless. I whispered, "Why wasn't I enough?" Even though I already knew the answer. I stared at their photos until the screen blurred, pretending I wasn't jealous of the man who actually showed up for her when I didn't. Each picture felt like a reminder of everything I wasted. I hated how true it all felt. Zara found me in the cafe the next morning, tapping her nails against my table like she had every right to interrupt my misery. She didn't even sit before saying, "You're doing it again, aren't you?" I tried denying it, but she rolled her eyes. "Elena didn't choose Mason because he was better," she said. "She chose him because he was present." I clenched my jaw, muttering that she didn't understand, but Zara leaned closer. "You pushed her away, and Mason simply stepped into the space you left empty." I had no argument strong enough to bury her truth today. I walked to work with her words echoing in my chest like a slow bruise spreading. When I reached the office, Mrs. Hayes caught me before I could hide behind my door. "You look exhausted," she said, narrowing her eyes at me. I shrugged, pretending it was nothing. She didn't buy it. "Your attitude has been slipping for months," she continued. "People notice when someone is hurting, but they also notice when someone refuses to grow." I stood silent while she spoke. Her voice softened. "Fix what's breaking inside you. Not for anyone else. Do it for yourself." I heard everything. Ryan cornered me near the elevators later, holding 2 coffees like he'd been waiting for me. "You look like hell," he said, handing me one. I muttered that I was fine, but he snorted. "You're not," he replied. "You've been drifting, man. Elena leaving didn't break you. It exposed you." I stared at the floor because arguing felt pointless. Ryan sighed. "You never let anyone in." "Not really." She tried, but you kept shutting doors before she even knocked. His voice softened. "You can still change, but you have to want it, not just regret it." I knew he was right. I went home that evening with a heaviness I couldn't shake. My apartment felt smaller, like the walls had moved in while I was gone. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing until my phone lit up again with another photo of Elena and Mason. This time they were laughing. Not posed, not forced. Real. I whispered. I did that. I made that freedom possible. Though the words tasted bitter. I didn't want to admit how deeply it hurt to see her thriving somewhere I no longer fit. But honesty was finally clawing its way out of me now. I replayed Zara's voice in my head. She chose him because he was present. The sentence lingered like a bruise. I whispered to the empty room. Was I ever present? But the silence answered honestly. I remembered every missed call, every distracted conversation. Every moment she asked for more, and I offered less. I rubbed my face, groaning. I thought working hard was enough, though I knew that wasn't the whole truth. I hid behind ambition because it was easier than vulnerability. Admitting that made my chest burn. But it was a pain I needed to finally face right now. I grabbed a notebook, something I hadn't touched in years, and forced myself to write the things I'd avoided saying aloud. I wrote. I wasn't attentive then. I didn't listen, and finally, I made her feel alone. Seeing the words on paper stung more than I expected. I muttered, "No wonder she left," letting the truth sit without fighting it. I wasn't fixing myself for her anymore. I was doing it because I could feel the damage I'd caused inside my own life. I wanted to become someone I could finally respect, even if no one returned to me again. But even as I promised change, a small part of me held onto hope I couldn't kill. I whispered, "Maybe she'll see me trying," though I hated how desperate it sounded. I leaned back, covering my face. Do people really get second chances? I asked the empty air. No answer came, just the soft hum of a life I had nearly ruined. I admitted quietly, "I miss her," letting the ache spread slowly. I didn't want nostalgia to guide me, but I couldn't pretend healing erased longing. Hope wasn't helping me, yet I couldn't let it go, not this time. I sat in the dim glow of my living room, holding the notebook like it contained every version of me I had ignored. I whispered, "I'm trying," hoping the effort meant something. I knew growth wouldn't guarantee her return, but for the first time, that wasn't the goal. I wanted to change because I was finally seeing the truth of who I'd been. I whispered, "I hope she's happy," and surprised myself by meaning it. I closed my eyes, letting the ache settle without resistance. Healing wasn't linear, but tonight felt like a beginning I wasn't running from at all. I wasn't prepared to see her again. I kept telling myself it was just another event, just another evening. But the second I walked in and saw her hand in Mason's, every prepared thought vanished. I whispered, "Elena," before I could stop myself. She looked at me calmly, not surprised, not shaken, just steady. Mason glanced my way, then gently squeezed her hand, but didn't move closer. My chest tightened. I muttered, "I didn't think you'd come tonight." She replied, "It's Claire's fundraiser." Of course I came. Her voice was soft, even, untouched by the storm shaking inside me. I swallowed hard and forced myself to breathe. "You look different," I said, and immediately regretted how weak it sounded. She gave a small smile. "I'm doing better now." My throat burned. Mason excused himself politely, giving her space but not distance. She watched him step away before turning back to me. "How have you been?" she asked. I laughed bitterly, trying to fix what I should have fixed years ago. She nodded, not mocking, not pitying, just listening. "That's good," she said. I could tell she meant it. Her calmness made me feel even more exposed standing in front of her. I asked quietly, "Can we talk? Just for a minute." She hesitated for a breath, then nodded. We stepped outside into the cool evening air. I rubbed my hands together, desperate to stay composed. "I don't want to make this weird," I said. She raised a brow. "It's okay." I exhaled shakily. "I didn't expect to see you like this, happy settled." She leaned against the railing. "I worked for it." Her words hit harder than she probably intended. I whispered, "You really did." She looked past me at the garden lights, and I realized she wasn't avoiding me. She was protecting herself. I took a breath. "Elena, I need to say something." She crossed her arms gently, waiting. My voice cracked. "I'm sorry." She didn't flinch. I kept going. "Not to win you back. Not to make things right between us. I'm sorry because I finally understand the damage I caused. I made you feel like you didn't matter." She looked down at her shoes. I whispered, You always deserved better than the man I was. She finally met my eyes. I didn't want better, she said softly. I just wanted you. But you weren't there. Hearing it aloud shattered something inside me. I know, I whispered. I kept thinking I had time. Time to change, time to fix things, time to be the person you needed. She tilted her head, studying me. Not harshly, not kindly, just truthfully. You always thought you had time, she said, her voice steady. He didn't. The words sliced through me. I murmured. Mason, he's good to you. She nodded. He shows up. He listens. He tries. Not perfectly, but consistently. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. I'm glad, I said, and for the first time, I meant it without bitterness. She smiled faintly, appreciating the honesty. I leaned against the wall, feeling the weight of everything I never said. I wish I had understood earlier, I murmured, that loving someone means being present, not just being around. She sighed softly. I used to wait for you to notice things. My sadness, my silence, my effort. You kept missing it. I whispered. I know. I'm working on that. She nodded. I can see you're trying. That acknowledgement hurt and healed at the same time. Thank you, I said. She exhaled slowly. But effort now doesn't fix what already broke. Her honesty was gentle, but still devastating. We stood there for a long moment. I finally asked, "Do you hate me?" She shook her head. "No, I just stopped waiting for you." That hurt more than any anger could. I tried smiling. "That's fair." She softened slightly. "You weren't a bad person. You were just absent." I rubbed my face. "I'm trying not to be that anymore." She nodded. "Good. Do it for you." I let out a slow breath. "I am." Silence settled again, but it wasn't tense, just final. She looked toward the entrance, and something in her expression told me the moment was ending soon. Mason stepped outside then, not interrupting, just waiting where he was. He wasn't glaring or staking territory. He simply existed beside her life the way I never did. Present, steady, dependable. Elena noticed him and smiled, small and real. I felt something collapse quietly inside me. I whispered, "He's waiting for you." She nodded. "He always does." Her words weren't meant as a wound, but they landed like one anyway. I stepped back, giving her space. "Thank you for hearing me," I said. She offered a soft, almost nostalgic smile. "Thank you for saying what you never said before." She took a step toward Mason. He reached out his hand to her without hesitation. She slipped her hand into his, fitting into the moment like she belonged there. Watching them felt like watching the answer to every question I had ignored for years. I whispered, "I didn't lose you to him." She turned back just slightly, meeting my eyes one last time. "You lost me to your ego," she said gently. Then she walked away with the man who showed up when I didn't. I stood there in the cold night air, understanding finally. This was the consequence I earned. I didn't know where to start. I told my therapist, "I feel like I've wasted years." She nodded. "What's wasted?" I shrugged. "Everything. My pride, my anger, the moments I ignored. I hurt someone I loved, and I can't get her back." She leaned forward. "Then start with yourself." I laughed bitterly. "That's easier said than done." She smiled gently. "Nothing that matters is easy. You've spent years avoiding yourself. Now you have to meet him." I frowned. "Him?" "You," she said. "The man you've been hiding from all along." I walked out later and muttered to the empty street, "I've been running." Nolan met me at the cafe. "You look different," he said. I frowned. "Different how?" He smiled. "You look like someone who's finally facing the truth." I laughed shakily. "I'm just trying not to break everything again." He leaned back. Maybe break things isn't the worst outcome. Maybe it's learning to rebuild. I didn't answer at first. Rebuild what? I asked finally. Your life, he said. Not hers. Yours. That's the first step. I started small. I called Claire. Hey, I wanted to say thank you for being honest, I said. She raised her brow. You're actually calling me? I chuckled. Yeah, I guess I finally get it. She smiled softly. Good. People need to hear that sometimes, even if it's late, we talked more than I expected. Not about Elena. About me. About work. About choices. About the pride I had carried like armor. I whispered. I didn't know I needed this. She nodded. Sometimes losing someone is the only way to find yourself. At home, I faced the mirror. I need to stop blaming her, I whispered. I touched my face. I need to own my mistakes without excuses. I sat on the edge of the bed and wrote down every flaw I had ignored for years. Each word stung, but it also felt like a wound being cleaned. I muttered, maybe this is how I start healing. The notebook became my companion. When I didn't feel like talking to anyone, I wrote to myself. When I wanted to rage or cry, I wrote. Slowly, I began to see a version of me I didn't hate. One evening, Nolan came over again. Progress report? He asked, grinning. I sighed. It hurts, but it's less raw. I'm trying to let go of pride. He laughed. That's huge. Most people never even get there. I smiled faintly. Feels like I've been pretending to be okay for decades. He leaned forward. You're okay now because you're honest with yourself. I nodded. Yeah, but the honesty hurts. Good, he said. Pain means change is happening. Don't run from it. I stopped scrolling through her photos. I deleted the tabs, the notifications, the reminders of what I lost. One night, I whispered. I don't need her to forgive me. I need to forgive me. Nolan raised an eyebrow. That's a big step. I nodded. It's the only step I can really take. I realized I'd been chasing closure from someone who moved on. Now, I had to give myself closure. I'm doing it for me, I muttered. It felt heavy, like letting go of a shadow I had carried my entire life. But it was freeing too. Conversations with myself became harsher and gentler at the same time. I whispered. I won't be proud of hurting her, but I can be proud of learning from it. I paused. I want to rebuild friendships, not just fix what I broke. I want purpose, not excuses. Nolan smiled. You're finally living instead of surviving. I laughed softly. Feels like the first time in years. I started volunteering, helping people with things I had ignored before. I whispered to myself, this is how you start making amends, with action, not words. Sometimes I thought of Elena. I didn't text her. I didn't stalk her social media. I just let the thoughts settle quietly. She was the turning point. I admitted aloud. Even though she's gone, she saved me from myself. I could finally say it without bitterness, without hope of returning. It was pure recognition. I can be better now, for myself. I smiled faintly. Love isn't lost in a single moment. It's rebuilt through every choice after. I felt a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Months passed. Therapy sessions, coffee dates with friends I'd neglected, quiet evenings reflecting on who I had been and who I wanted to become. Nolan met me one evening and said, "You're different." I laughed. I feel different. Lighter, maybe. He grinned. That's growth. I looked out the window. It's slow, sometimes painful, but real. I whispered softly. I didn't rebuild for her. I rebuilt for me. For my future. And maybe one day, I'll love better. Not because I have to, but because I finally know how. Nolan nodded, silently approving the weight of my words. I ended the chapter of my life I'd been stuck in for years. I didn't expect fireworks, or sudden peace, or closure delivered neatly. I expected slow mornings, quiet victories, small reflections. I whispered, I can live again. I can love myself first. And even though she would never know, Elena had given me the courage to do it. Without her presence, I might still be trapped in my ego, chasing time I didn't have. Now, I was free. Painful, honest, steady freedom. And it felt like life finally belonged to me. I saw her again by chance. I froze for a moment, heart catching in my chest, but it was different this time. No panic, no ache, just a calm I hadn't felt in years. She was standing with Mason, holding his hand gently, laughing softly. The sunlight caught her hair, and for the first time, I didn't feel the sharp sting of jealousy. I whispered to myself, she's happy, really happy. My chest felt full, but not heavy. I realized I could look at her and breathe. I stepped forward cautiously. Elena, I said softly. She turned, surprised for a moment, then smiled gently. Not the smile that hurt, not the one that begged me to see her, but a quiet, serene smile. Hi, she said. Her voice carried the same warmth I remembered, but without the tension that used to coil around it. I nodded. It's good to see you. She tilted her head slightly, curiosity in her eyes. You look different, she said. I laughed lightly. I think I finally understand who I am. She nodded. I can see that. You carry yourself differently now. I felt a wave of relief. No judgment, no bitterness, just acknowledgement. Mason stayed a step behind her. Not intrusive, not threatening, just present. I whispered to myself, that's exactly what I failed to be. Elena's gaze returned to mine. I'm glad you're okay, she said. I smiled faintly. I am, and I'm glad you are too. She nodded, a soft, quiet agreement, like the world had paused just long enough for us to speak without the ghosts of the past clinging to us. I asked carefully, do you ever think about what we had? Her smile softened. Sometimes, she admitted, but it's not bitter. It's memory, and memory doesn't hurt anymore. I exhaled slowly, letting the words sink in. I'm learning the same, I whispered. That pain isn't permanent, and neither is regret if you carry it wisely. She looked at me, a flicker of understanding passing between us. We stood in silence for a moment, letting the noise of the street flow around us. Then she spoke lightly. You seem different. I mean calmer. I nodded. I had to face myself. I had to understand what I lost, why I lost it, and who I was because of it. It wasn't easy. She smiled gently. It shows. You've grown. The words didn't sting. They didn't wound. They simply reflected the truth I had worked for months to accept. I felt the urge to say something more. I used to think losing you meant failure, but now I see it differently. She looked at me, waiting. It meant finding myself. She studied me, then nodded slightly. That's powerful, she said softly. I shrugged, smiling faintly. Not easy, but necessary. Mason reached out, lightly touching her shoulder. She glanced at him, then back at me. I think we both needed our lessons, she said. I whispered, yes. I finally understand that. I stepped back, giving her space. I should go, I said quietly. She nodded. I should too. There was no awkwardness, no pain, no tension, just calm. Goodbye, Elena, I said, and for the first time, saying it didn't hurt. She smiled, faint and peaceful. Goodbye, she replied. Her hand lingered in Mason's for a brief second, and I realized that life moved on. And so could I. As I walked away, I whispered to the empty street. She wasn't meant to break me. She was meant to wake me up. I smiled faintly, a quiet acknowledgement of everything I had learned. My steps felt lighter, purposeful. I realized something simple but profound. Love doesn't always last, but the lessons it leaves behind do. Losing her wasn't the end. It was the beginning, the moment I finally found myself. And I understood, deeply and completely, that sometimes love ends so life can truly begin.